Shirley here with Sirius Dallas Moon, and let's take a look at the chart. Midheaven with Chiron, Jupiter hour, Jupiter 19 degrees, Cancer Moon ingress to Sagittarius, Venus 11 degrees, Gemini. Now, applying to oppose Lilith. I'll tell you the way I'm reading the energy, and it looks like there's a certain of Venus in the 11th house, perhaps because of that. There's a certain group that what they do is they rape and traffic people, and then they pretend that these people are like a scandal or something of that sort. And then when these people speak up, they try to pretend that it was a romantic relationship. When everybody's clearly known, oh, Mars 18 degrees Aries. So there is some sort of really toxic strategy where, how should I say that? Because I don't know what is this group or what is this thing that they're doing. By the way, if I think, for example, of like date, then it's kind of like this decades they're true. I saw a short of interview with Andrew Tate, and he was released from prison, and he says, oh, but one of the women they accused 7 other men of. Now, of course, this was network. So, of course, trying to go for like exposing the names of the network would be better for him. For example, Marc Dutroux, when he was caught, then he wanted to talk about the network. And the fact that this is out, and the fact that Melissa's father said he doesn't want to hear about the network, approved the truth's words. And so this group might be connected with the Epstein, the True Tate, and again we are the honing in is on the focus of if they torture people, if they torture and rape a person, they would come to say, okay, destruction, how should I say it? A bombing entire humanity is euthanasia. Now I'm also seeing that people I talked about it a lot, the fact that tenants are tortured and raped, and so tenants have to flee. So what happens? Tenants have to flee, and people, it reminds me of the subprime. During the subprime, people had to leave jobs, had to leave rent, had to leave many things because of the crisis. Now, people got in debt. They didn't have money to pay. And so because they saw that even going to work will not pay, a lot of them did not go to like black market or anything like that because there's no point. They won't be able to pay. And this causes the great debt relief because these people sometimes they try to work still and they were prescribed an antidepressant. And that caused think about the Johnson & Johnson litigation for risperidone that was only finalized in 2021. And then Teva Pharmaceuticals comes up with risperidone that supposedly new after or amidst the war where people would cry for mental health. Now, what is happening right now in the real estate is kind of the same. And I talked about it in numerous videos. I tried to warn people from definitely not getting into debt to buy an estate. And if they do, let it be for residence and not as investment property. Now, if the people have been trafficked by technology to make these financial decisions, then the call to declassify classified technologies. These are technologies that are connected with Epstein dossiers. Epstein take that through. And so on a bigger level, on a like Neptune Aries level, if I ask myself, okay, so what is the antidote? People not having to work for a living, for a house, for there is food growing. Work is in it now. Here's the thing, of course, picking up, let's say, naturally growing herbs and cooking them, of course, it's labor. But this type of lifestyle, if people are raped in such, let's say, communities or intentional communities, then people will seek out to the city. And if that doesn't work, then they will begin to be okay with destroying humanity. Now, if it's okay with destroying humanity, then entire nuclear bomb of entire Earth immediately is euthanasia. All the go to all the, how should I say that? All the attempts like to torture people and so on and so forth, it doesn't yield anything. Now, even people that were, how should I say that? Mars 18 degrees, Venus 11 degrees. If empathy was used as, if empathy was only given to people when the person that provides the empathy portrays a certain scenario as if it wasn't, as if it was like romantic relationship or something like that, then the actual thing is that it was a trafficking setup that that person enables consciously or not. Or people try to close something as, oh, that was a romantic issue. No, it wasn't. There is no romance. When people are tortured, when people are raped, when people are trafficked, is no romance. If a person doesn't have the ability to say no, there was never a yes. It also means that the current marriages, all the current marriages, are actually invalid. All the current rent contracts, for example, are actually invalid. You could only have rent when everybody has a house. If I, for example, if I want to, I don't know, travel to Iceland and hear from the local people about the elves and how the culture and so on, then I'm likely to rent a place. Yes, I'm coming to travel, to visit, to study, whatnot. But if all Icelanders don't have a house, there is no rent sector. Now, people are like, they're going to confiscate property a second, a split 2 meters before they actually confiscate property to an oil company that caused the problem. Require each person to have a house. Don't illude yourself that you're going to have an investment property when there are people unhoused as independent sovereign housing. If people are raped for an apartment or are raped locked in apartments, what makes you think you're going to have an investment property? They're going to do that to the property. No. And then you are an owner of an estate that has trafficking within it. You know, Detro did that in public housing. Epstein did that in mansions. Hmm. Then people had, the tenants run off. There was just today there was a case like that in Israel. It doesn't matter what the verdict is. Even if they say, oh, the tenant should pay, where would the tenant pay from? They are trafficked, they combating violence, they can't work, they need to recover from, they need lifelong compensation for recovering from sexual trauma. And they can have babies, and they can have a man lost the ability to work, and so on and so forth. Just like the debt relief of the subprime that was, to begin with, the debt was created by people trying to work, having a crisis, the money is not enough, and then they're also targeted by rituals, targeted by classified technologies. Now, secular people, where the fuck were we? A lot of us got to learn astrology because of these things. We had no name for these things. Whatever mental health was not, people saw that they are going to die if they are going to take. So they're like, what is this prescribed? Petroleum, maybe. I don't know. And then they were like, class lawsuit after class lawsuit. So why is no change? Now, that in itself causes loss of ability to work and chronic inflammation, chronic trauma, on which can sit a fungal infection. Now people went to rehabilitation. They went to study something new or to study degree if they didn't have degree or if they didn't have money to have degree. Then what happens? Another infiltration. And then we have the Me Too. My job should not include. Now we are at my house should house. Rape is not housing. Rape is not work. Rape is not diplomacy. And so the many people, they're like, how should I say that? They are fearing confiscation of property. Nobody wants confiscation of property. They're like, okay, like a little bit of awareness to abolish rape. People thinking the Me Too went too far in 2026. Technology, amazing. This technology was developed in patriarchal society. Okay, technology negated now. They say, who would pay for that? Who do you think would pay for that? Target the traffickers and have them, whatever they made, would pay for that. I said, no, everybody in there. Okay, but that means that the infrastructure of for the AI that targets people needs to be destroyed together with the infrastructure of for the dark occult. For those the occult is used to traffic people. Now, the core issue when there's no rape, there can be many solutions. There can be public housing, co-intentional communities, whatnot, as long as they can accommodate for people. And even the work is actually, if a barista has a chair that they can sometimes sit, sometimes stand, that they can have normal breaks from work, that they can have a side business that they actually express themselves, then people have less issue working as barista. If you're barista, the person that makes your coffee, stands on their feet so much so that if they begin to work in high school by 20, they will have working disability. Is what happened to me. I'm 41. In Netherlands in the last several years, and I was one of these women, many, almost pandemic of women that applied for euthanasia because of these things. Nobody can say yes when they cannot say no. And when people think that it is so, the situation compounds it 9/11 on itself. So Mars will believe in 18 degree, I believe, already by tomorrow. But almost tomorrow. And then what people need to be aware. Of course, the jurisdiction system is one of the most targeted things by infiltration networks. What is the solution? I don't know, but people have to understand that in those situations, people agree to have entire humanity go extinct by a bomb because it's euthanasia. And so when people are not tortured, they don't want euthanasia, nor do they want to unalive themselves. And I say it as a person. Now, the same use of technology can be used to enforce actual livable life, good life. There are all the solutions, and the world is changing to an unprecedented level. It also means that there are no excuses for the changing world to not change in favor of human rights, women's rights, children's rights, in praxis, in culture, in spirit, and in matter. And of course, in technology. No excuse, zero excuse. The world changed it to Uranus Sedna. Sedna in Gemini. 12 millennia Senna has not been in Gemini. This is so. So where is it coming from? Let's see. Venus 11 degrees in Gemini, Mars 18 degrees in the ninth house. So it can be people that had belief in evil strategies or belief. Now these beliefs were generated by the original belief. The world is changing to unprecedented level, meaning that those things absolutely can change. Um, Chiron, Aries, people that may have been disincluded and they deal with that with toxic strategies. Oh, and Mars is a degree from the exact square with Jupiter. Now, I believe that by tomorrow noon, I believe it will already be way better. Because people's nervous system will already have chance to be more regulated. Um, Now there is the question, should people answer with let's say with Mars 18 degrees? Yes, this is time where we can address the strategies. If we address these things and say, hey, that, and that needs to be resolved. For example, in Saturn hour, we see what are the issues that we need, let's say, to edit or to change. So if it is, let's say, a response, absolutely, that's a great time to deal with the toxic, for example, the toxic belief, the toxic strategy, to discuss that and to raise that into awareness. And then by tomorrow, probably we're going to have a lot of things resolved. Now, of course, Mars is going to square Jupiter. Um, I like that the square is in the 19 degrees and not the 18 degrees. It means that there can actually be a genuine, authentic argument that's about real things. Because Mars here is fighting something, defending something, and he's fighting certain beliefs. And with the moon Lilith, here there's a tension of growth. If you think, for example, about traditional family values, the woman needs to not be subjugated. Only then there can be any chance for family and to heal sense of self after sexual violence. And population doesn't grow by rape. What grows by rape is masses of human extinction. It's not the population that people want to grow, and let's say, to say the least. Now, all of us were that population. And we've spent decades of shadow work. And then there are the people that did not even have the access to spend decades of shadow work. A lot of us were doing that in between filing essays, or in between shifts, or in between applying to unalive ourselves because we're not able to work, and so on and so forth. And then we're like, oh, but why is this person able to speak here but not but at work? Because at work they are told to sell corruption. They can't speak. They become sick. But they can also not be forced to speak the truth when there's nobody that, because then they also become what unable to speak. And so when people speak, it's already, how should I say that? In many cases, the last call. That's the square tomorrow, and that square is not resolved without Lilith. And Lilith is sort of a kind of a in conjunct in Jupiter. Lilith is the woman that would not be subjugated. So what is her opinion about the traditional family values? There can only be family growth where women are not subjugated, and birth is not punishment. It's not a matter of controlling. Now, Lilith and the moon agree with Mars here. And what they agree with Mars is about the strategy. The strategy is supposed to be sovereignty supportive. If people, let's say, develop technology, yeah, they need to be paid for their labor, but it's not the trafficked people or the targeted people that can pay them. Those would need lifelong compensations. The only thing that a global type of regime or governance can sustain through is individual human rights for everyone in praxis. People that have been chronically dealing with the subjugation, infiltration of whatnot, how should I say that? They have crossed the threshold in the sense that this is their speaking up is already the last call. Their sovereignty cannot be negotiated. It has to be. Being safe and free and having, whether it's the house, the ability to live as one sees fit, is a non-negotiable. Anything else enables slavery, which originates in rape. Aries sovereignty is a non-negotiable thing. And this is why Aries opposes Libra. In Libra, we negotiate between rights. In Aries, the sovereignty is non-negotiable. If a patient came to me, yeah, and they would tell me, as holistic health practitioner, that they are negotiating something, I don't know, for, let's say, labor rights. And they would say, Shirley, what oil can support me where I don't get all of my sovereignty. How can I not be sick? And I say, I cannot, because I can give you essential oils, but they would only spark you to it's kind of like your sense of self has to be there. And not only that, you will not be able to pay me. I cannot illude you that you will be healthy in a subjugating system. I cannot illude you that you will be healthy in a system where people try to decide for other people who they are. And no, people will not have their, how should I say, if one person says, oh, I'm gay, amazing, another person was raped, tortured, forcibly went through gender change, Anya Week, and says, but I'm not originally gay. I support LGBTQ rights, but we're going to have to remove the component of ritual abuse. Of one person says, well, my coping mechanism, I don't know if a person is, but a stripper or whatnot. Well, as long as people are raped, tortured, use of technology to loss of sense of self, so that they would perform, or so that they would be trafficked, we can't say there's sex work. It's the same. And you say, but surely every profession, of course, this is the crisis we have. Before AI, there was what? The Me Too. Where were people at the Me Too? What was the Me Too? It was attempt to rape and torture for people to have every job. And then you say, but Chile, what if I told you that intelligence and diplomacy operates this way for years? Oh, amazing. Now we found out why it happens. And then the Epstein dossiers came out. When people try to inquisition people to call them a messiah, then what sparks up? Secularity. Who are the people that abolished the Inquisition? The seculars. But we can't do that without honoring the feminine. People that take their rage out on women that speak up. Or on people that cannot speak. Mars tomorrow. Now here's the thing. There's an authentic crisis because Jupiter is choice and in Cancer is exalted, for then Moon next to Lilith in Sagittarius is the woman that would not be subjugated. Okay, what about the people that were raped and tortured? They're not actually subjugated by their choice to comply. Now, think about the difference between Lilith and Eve. Lilith would not be subjugated. Adam says, divorce. Amazing. She went away, made sure no babies are born to a place where birth is punishment and so on and so forth. Then no babies can be actually sustaining them. which causes, of course, death rates in infants. Falcon, if you recently had a baby and nobody rapes anybody and you're not invested in rape technologies, okay, just stay away from this video so not to trigger not to trigger you folks. If you are invested in technologies that are used for raping people, calling to declassify classified technologies, and so on and so forth, you also have been scammed by investment fraud. And probably there are many families that it happened to them, um, which can unite to class lawsuits. And the class lawsuits are against basically the classified technologies. Now, again, they say, oh, who will pay for these things? Well, it's assets. It's individual housing. It's housing for the people that were trafficked. Now, here's the thing. If it needs to resolve well for both the people that were targeted and the people that were scammed. Torture is the component factor that makes choice not accessible to people. And yet, what was created without enabling choice, and enabling choice is not a momentary thing, is a consistent thing. Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. Thank you. תודה. No, I'm recording. Thank you. This is why I'm saying that the growth crisis here is going to be with Mars in Aries about sense of self and sovereignty, necessitating abolishing rape, and Jupiter in Cancer would be, but there is choice, but there is choice, but there is choice. And Mars says here, choice is only where there's no rape. And the Moon agrees with Mars. It says, of course, when the woman that would not be subjugated, then all these things are true. But she has to not be subjugated. And so for her to not be subjugated, we need to abolish rape. Under all its guises. Rape is the yeast. Rape is the difficulties in fertilities in men and women. Rape is the policies that put stuff that are toxic in what's supposed to be a vaccine. But you say, Shirley, how? What do you think happened to Bill Gates before he did that type of enterprise? Now, oh, but he had an opportunity to come out. Well, if a child is born tortured for prolonged time, not really, and the only children that survive are the ones who agree to be the most evil. And so, well, once he said that he wanted to become a virus. What is virus? Is Neptune. It's a point of helplessness that poisons the world to total extinction. It's basically the helplessness of the tortured since infanthood, wanting to have what end to the suffering. That created the vaccine that was not exactly vaccine in COVID. No amount of he chose to be born would be suffice, because if he would agree he was chosen, that he chose to be born, what would be the only reason? What would be the only reasonable explanation? He was chosen to be born to end the suffering of humanity on this planet. But for that, he needed power. He needed to survive as. That's the only explanation. This is why a lot of these people are thinking, oh, we enlightened humanity. And they're not, but it's heartbreaking to say so. The only thing that could be a way out of this is to cease the practices of torturing since infanthood and so on and so forth. And we try to do it by exposing the names. And we try to do it by calling to the classified projects. And we try many things. But essentially, or even what to call entire total extinction. When people have a space where they are safe and free, a lot of things can happen where they know it's like, okay, then their thinking is, what would discontinue that? And then their thinking is seizing the practices in the culture and so on and so forth. Why? Because they experienced a seize of the practice. When people talk about total extinction, they haven't experienced a seize of the practice. And then people try to seize the practice because they, of course, want to leave and then be in some sort of a bunker. Doesn't work. Nuclear energy leaks. The first thing that would get to the bunker is the nuclear energy. In fact, better to be at the focal point of the bomb drop, says the girl broadcasting from Israel. Not because of choice, it's just like the way things happen. And so, then to be in a bunker. One is immediate death, and the other is very weird type of like. And this is also why there are certain delays. Saturn Neptune can also be certain delays about the development of a nuclear bomb that would permeate the bunkers. Why? Because in the bunkers, if you think, okay, where are the children of Epstein Island? Okay? They shouldn't be suffering. If the world is going, let's say, total extinction or total abolishing of the practice. And they say, oh my God, this is so extreme. It's either or. Torturing an infant since birthing is kind of extreme.